thank you for joining us today in our webinar, Gating and Using Gates in FCS Express 5. My name is Juan Vasquez. I am a technical application specialist with the Novo software. I am joined on the line today with Sean Burke, our product manager. He will be answering questions. For anyone that has any questions, please feel free to enter the question in the questions section of your GoToWebinar control panel, and he will answer them for you. We will try to take some time at the end of the webinar to answer any questions you may have, so please feel free to ask any questions when they come up, okay? So before we actually get into the meat of the webinar, I just wanted to take this time to inform you about several upcoming webinars that we have coming up, just in case you're interested. You can always go to our website at novosoftware.com or fcsexpress.com, and there'll be a link on our homepage for upcoming webinars where you can click on that link and register for the upcoming links. So as you can see, we have a number of webinars that are coming up, some that are specific, talking about some of the new features in FCS Express 5, like pie charts, bar charts, scatter plots with regression, panels, using multi-cycle, and some of the other features that are available. So if any of those interest you, please feel free to go to our website and sign up for those webinars. This webinar will be recorded and will be available on our website as well as our YouTube site. So if if anyone tunes out or there's something that maybe they missed and they just want to come back to, we will be posting it, and it will be available on our website or on our YouTube channel for your reference. Okay? All right, so today's webinar is going to be about gating. We're not really going to talk about some of the basics like inserting plots or get into the nitty-gritty of statistics or tokens or anything like that. What we're going to do is we're just going to focus on gating in general. So we're going to talk about the types of gates that FCS Express offers. We're going to talk about creating them and applying them to your plots to view the gated data. We're going to talk about a new feature that was added in FCS Express and the ability to emphasize either gated events or low-frequency events, and we'll talk about that a little bit during the webinar. We'll talk about the use of quadrants and markers and turning those into gates as well. We're going to talk about something called the gate view, which is an object that we can insert into our layout, and it shows the relationship of our gates to one another. Or maybe some of you might better know it as like a population hierarchy type view. We're going to talk about combination gates, or gates that you can use Boolean logic to create those gates, and we'll also talk about something called a combination gate matrix, where we can select several gates and then we can create this matrix, and FCS Express will create all the different permutations of those different gates. Maybe gate 1 is positive, gate 2 and gate 3 are negative, and whatever all the different combinations are within that. We're going to talk about the Gate Navigator, which is a handy filtering tool that's going to be available from the View tab, which will help you filter out where your gates are, what plots are set to specific gates, and we'll also touch upon your gate preferences near the end of the webinar. Okay? So for those of you that aren't familiar, a gate is a tool where you can focus your analysis on specific events or cells of interest. Okay, so what you do is you can just find this population of interest, whether you want to focus on this on these cells of interest off of relative size or relative nuclear complexity or some type of fluorescence, or maybe it's some type of raw cellular characteristic if you're doing some type of imaging analysis. The idea is that you can go to our gating tab, and from our gating tab, you can see that we have all these different gating tools that are available to you, okay? And simply, to use one, you'll just select the tool that you want to use to gate our cells of interest, and then we'll just draw that gate over our cells of interest. And once we let go of our mouse, we're going to be presented with this Create New Gate window, okay? At this point, we can give our gate a name. If we have multiple gates in our layout already, we can choose what we want to be the parent for that gate. If we want to replace an existing gate, so in other words, we can create this gate, and this gate would slide into the place of another gate. So that way, all stats, whatever tokens, conditions you created with that original gate, this new gate will update and take the place of that old gate. We can choose the gate color for the cells within this gate, or the events within this gate, so that way if you're viewing this data on colored dot plots, then you'll be able to see the colors for the events that fall within that gate throughout those colored dot plots. You can determine whether this gate is going to be an inclusion gate or an exclusion gate. So, in other words, whether the cell is going to this particular gate is going to include the cells that are within that gate, or if you want to create a gate that's everything but the cells within that gate. And then finally, as I mentioned, a tool that's new to FCS Express 5, the ability to emphasize these gates on your colored dot plots. So what this is going to do, it's going to increase the dot size just for those gated events, and you'll be able to focus on these cells. Maybe these are cells of interest that you want to follow throughout your analysis, or maybe these are rare events that maybe you want them to pop out and emphasize them more, so that way, if they're buried on top of millions of other cells, you can make the software automatically increase the size just for that gated population. At this point, we're just going to give our gate a name, and then we can just click OK. And then you'll see we'll have that gate that we use, that gating tool, the ellipse gate. And to move this gate around, you just simply click on it, hold your mouse. You can just move it around and just place it where you want it. If you want to resize it, just grab one of the 4 vertices to either resize or reshape it. Okay? Now, if I wanted to take this gate and apply it to other plots, I can simply just select the plots where I want this gate to be displayed. And from the gating tab, you'll see that there's a current gate drop-down menu where I can simply just select the gate that I want, and I can view those events for within that gate, within those plots, specific for the parameters I've chosen on the X and Y axis. Okay? What we can also do to apply a gate to a plot is just to simply take the gate and just drag and drop it to a plot. Now what I've done here is I've also added some information here into the title of each plot, so that way I know what gate's being applied to which plot. And the way we could do that is we can actually just format these plots. So for example, I can either just double click on a single plot, which can open up my format menu, and you'll see that there's a title section, and I can put that information here just by choosing from the insert key, insert keyword drop-down menu, and you'll see that there's an option for current gate. Or I can just hold my control key and just select the gates, the plots that I want to edit at once, and go to the Format tab, and again just choose the title option. And I can format that information here, again just by selecting the option from here, from the insert keyword drop-down menu. So once you have that information in your title, you'll see that that information automatically updates as we choose different gates that can be displayed within a plot. I'm going to undo that. So now if we just add some more tools here, again, we could just simply click on the gating tool. And then again, we could just give our gate a name. So a rectangle gate, again, similar to the ellipse gate, where if we want to move it around, we could just select it and drag it, or if we want to resize it, we could just select one of the 4 corners and just reshape it and resize it as we need. A polygon gate will give you the ability to create a vertex for that gate with each click of the mouse. And again, as we close off that gate, we'll be prompted to give this gate a name and give it a color. Okay? Now what we can also do is we can replace the gates, as I mentioned. So let's say that instead of a polygon gate, maybe you want to use a freeform gate. Well, we could just select that tool, and we can just simply lasso that population. The freeform we would just use as a way to lasso or maybe paint a population. And again, when my Create New Gate window comes up, you'll see here that the second option to replace an existing gate, I'll select that. And then I could just choose the gate that I want to replace. So by doing that, I can click OK. and then you see that the gate will be changed. Okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to replace that again. But this time, what I'm going to do is I'm going to emphasize these gated events on my plots. So by choosing the emphasize option, you'll see that just those gated events are going to be increased in dot size. So this is a really handy tool to help you focus on your cells of interest, or if you want to backgate on a particular population, you can see where these cells will fall on all these colored dot plots. Or if you were trying to look for rare events, as I move this gate around, you can see that my emphasize will automatically update as I move that gate around too. Okay? So the last type of gate that we have up here is something called a well gate. So the well gate applies to our research users who are using the high content option. Now specifically, what they can do is they can apply a gate to a well and then apply the cells that were within that well to another plot that can be viewed. Okay, so on my screen here, you'll see I have a heat map looking at just a little bit more than a row of data, and I also have a density plot. So what I can do is, if I just go to my gating tab, I can select on the well gate, and I can click on any well that I consider a hit, for example. So in this case, with the coloring scheme, any red well is a hit, so I could just click on that well. And again, once I click on that well, I'll be presented with my Create New Gate option. I can give this a name and just click OK. So once I create that gate, I can go to this density plot and just choose it from the drop-down menu. Okay? So with this particular gate, it's probably pretty important to know which wells make up this well gate, just in case you wanted to refer back to it at some point. Well, what we've done in FCS Express 5 is we've included a new token type for the wells that make up a well gate. So again, if I just go to a text box and right-click with it and insert token, underneath the gate section, you'll see that there is now a token for gate wells. If I select that and just choose Insert, within the Create Gate Token window, I'm going to choose the name of the gate and just click OK. And then you'll see that the token is going to display the well that makes up that particular gate. And I can verify that just by right-clicking on my heat map and choosing Edit Gate, the name of the gate. And you probably, I don't know if you can tell on the screen, but that is actually highlighted in red. If I change this just by clicking on another well, then you'll see that that will update, as well as the data that's being displayed within the density plot. Also, if I just hold the Control key, I can select multiple wells, and the data will update here as well as within the plot. Or if I just click and drag to select several wells, both pieces of information will also update. Okay. So as part of our other gating tools, what we can do is we can add quadrants to our plots just by clicking our quads tool and then just clicking on a plot, a 2D plot, to view those quadrants. So then once we insert that quadrant into a plot, if we want to move that quadrant around, we can just grab our vertex in the center point and then just move it around. And then you'll see we also have the ability to put in stats here by default for the percent of gated cells for each quadrant. Okay? I can also insert a marker either on a 1D or a 2D plot. So simply just click on the Create Marker tool and just click and drag. And the marker works where we can just move it around just by clicking on the center and just moving it around. Or if you want to resize it or reshape it, you can just grab either the low bound or the high bound. And the data automatically updates. So getting back to the quadrants here, what we can do is we have different types of quadrants that we can use within our analysis. So the way we can actually use those different types of quadrants is by formatting the plot that's displaying that quadrant. So I either can right-click on that plot and choose a format option, or in FCS Express 5, if you just double-click on the plot, you can call up the format window, and you'll see that there's a category for quads. If I select that, you'll see that there's a drop-down menu for the type of quads that we can use. So we have several different types of quads that we can use within our analysis. So the default's standard, but we can use something called a floating quadrant, where if I select a floating quadrant, I can click OK. I can now adjust this quadrant in the 5 vertices that are available with that quadrant. So I can either adjust it in the middle or on the 4 endpoints to better fit my data. So if you have data that doesn't really follow a rectilinear pattern, you can see how that would come in handy. Now I'll undo that. And again, I'll just go back to that format menu. And you'll see here what we also have is the ability to create percentile quadrants. So with a percentile quadrant, it's a quadrant where we define the percentage of cells that we'd expect to find in that lower left quadrant. So we could do that for the x-axis, we could do that for the y-axis, or we could do it for both. So ideally, this probably works best with a negative control, an FMO, isotype, whatever it is that you may be using in your experiment, where we would expect roughly 99% of our cells on the x-axis and 99% of our cells on the y-axis to fall within that lower left quadrant. Once we set that, the quadrant is going to adjust itself to suit that criteria. Okay? So again, FCS Express can use this as a way to automate your analysis for you. And one other option that we have here is we have the ability to link quadrants from one plot to another plot. So within the same format menu, you'll see that you have the ability to link it to other quadrants. Depending on what other plots you have here available within your layout, you can just simply select it, and then you'll see a thumbnail for that plot down below. Okay? You may or may not have quadrants to link, but if you do, you can always link them together, and the plots to which you're linked will take the same coordinates as the original plot. So with these gates, quadrants and markers, what we can do is we can also turn them into gates. So by default, they're not necessarily gates. They're just counting the data within the boundaries of those particular elements. So for a quadrant, we're just counting the events in the upper left quadrant, the upper right quadrant, the lower left, the lower right, or either of the halves. And as with the marker, we're just counting the events that are falling between the low bound and the high bound. Now, chances are you probably would like to see that data probably plotted out within another plot. So what we can do is we can turn these into gates just by right-clicking on the specific plot. So for example, if I wanted to turn one of these quadrants into a gate, let's say I wanted to see all the quadrants that were up here in this upper half of the plot. I can just right-click on this plot, and you'll see that there's an option to convert quads to gates. When I select that, you'll see that I have 8 different options of what I can choose to turn into a gate. So I can focus on just one of the quadrants, or I could just choose one of the halves. Whatever option you select, you can just choose the convert and link option. And the create new gate window will automatically come up again. So we can just give this a name. Again, we'll give it a color. And then whatever color we've selected will be applied to the events in that upper section of the quadrant. And the same idea here with our marker, where if I just right-click on this histogram, I can convert this marker to a gate as well. I apologize, I'm not sure why this is coming up on my other monitor, but it just is. Again, we could just give it a name, and we can click OK. And then again, the cells that fall within that marker will be colored green, and you'll be able to see that in colored dot plots throughout your layout. Okay? So we have all these gates now. Well, how do we manage these gates in FCS Express? Well, what we can do is we can insert an object called a gate view. So from the Insert tab, I'm just going to click on Gate View, and I'm just going to click on my layout. Okay? So whether I actually click on the paper of the layout or in the margins, I can insert elements wherever I need to as part of the analysis. Okay? Within the Gate View, we're going to see all the different gates that apply to our analysis. Okay? So I have 3 gates already here that I have on another page that we'll talk about in a second. But then we also have the ones that we just created just now. Okay? So you can see by default, FCS Express is going to create your gates hierarchically. So if you have a plot that's set to a gate and then you create more gates on that plot, FCS Express by default will create those gates as children of the parent gate. Okay? But what we can also do is we can simply just take a gate, we can drag it if we need to readjust our hierarchy in any type of fashion. Okay? So our gate view really makes it easy for us to manipulate and optimize our gating strategy to suit our data. So within the gate view, let's say that we needed to rename a gate, for example. What I can do is I could just simply right-click on a gate, choose Rename, and I can rename my gate from there. And you'll also see that whatever changes we make here will also be added wherever we have our stats displayed for that gate. Also, what I can do is I can just double-click on a gate. And here, if I wanted to change the color, or if this was a quadrant that was linked, then you'll see what the coordinates are and which plot and what quadrant it was linked to. Or if I wanted to emphasize those gated events, I could just simply select that option and click OK. And then you'll see the changes happen accordingly. What we can also do from the gate view is we can drag and drop to apply gates to different plots. So for example, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to duplicate this plot. Actually, I'll put it over here. So if I just wanted to look at the cells within this marker, I can just take this and just drop it down here. Okay? And then you'll see that the gate will automatically be applied. Also, this is a good segue into our combination gates. So within FCS Express, we can use Boolean logic to create combination gates. We can simply do this just by right-clicking within the gate view, and you'll see that there's an option for Add Combination Gate. So in FCS Express, there are 4 different commands that we can use to create Boolean logic for these different gates. So we can use AND, we can use OR, we can use NOT, or we can use XOR. To create a combination gate, I'm just going to choose that option. We'll give that gate a name. We could provide a comment. And then finally, what the formula for this particular gate is going to be. And the way these formulas work is just through autofill. So what we're going to do is we're just going to, first of all, type the name for the gate that's going to make up this formula. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to look at the gates that are intersected between my dim and mid gates. So if I just type in D, you'll see that it autofills. So I can just hit my space, and then I can type in the first letter for the command. In this case, what I'm going to do is I'm going to intersect the gates, so I'm going to use my AND command. So what that means is that it's looking at events that are within all the gates of the gates that are making up this definition. Okay, so that event has to be physically within those gates. Okay, in other words, the events that are being intersected by all those gates. So I'm going to type in and space, and then I'll type in mid. And we'll click OK. And then you'll see it's added to our gate view. And if I wanted to apply it to a plot, I could select and just drag and drop it over here. Okay? And since this is a gate that's looking at the intersected events between those two gates specifically, those are the events that are right in there. And as I move this around, then you'll see where those intersected gates are. Okay? So what we'll do is we'll create an OR gate. And what this is going to do is going to join the events from two or more gates. And again, just as before, I'm just going to type in the gates that make up this definition with the command. And then just click OK. We'll click to apply that. Okay. So with the OR, we're looking at a combination of those two gates. Okay. So here's my dim, here's my mod, and my mid, and I'm basically just looking at all the cells that fall within the boundaries of those two gates together. Okay. And as I move this around, then you can see that that's updating as well, not just for the OR gate, but also for the AND gate. We can also create a NOT gate, for example. So a NOT gate are all the cells except the cells that are specified. In other words, if I just type in N for NOT, and whatever gate it is that we're trying to exclude, then we'll click OK. So basically, you'll see here that we're looking at all the cells except the cells that are within that bright gate. And then finally, we'll look at XOR gate. So an XOR gate is being defined by the cells that are within two gates exclusively. So basically, we're looking at cells that are in one gate and the other gate, but not in both. Okay? And again, I'm just going to define that just by typing in the gate names and the command. And then we'll just apply this over here to look at that. So again, XOR is looking at the cells that are exclusively within each two gates, but not in both of them at the same time. Okay? If you have any questions, please feel free to type them into the question section. So with these combination gates, you're not limited just to two gates. You can do as many gates as you need to. So if you wanted to look at, if you wanted to join the three gates together, you can simply do that, okay? And then wherever that gate was applied, then you'll see that the new addition will automatically look up. And we can make these as complex as we need to. Let's say you want to look at bright or mid. We'll close the parentheses. And whatever other population we have. Whatever the events are that make up that logic, you'll be able to view that within there. So we can make that as complex as we need to. Let me just edit this. Okay. So one of the other tools that are available to us in the gate view is something called the gate matrix, the combination gate matrix. Okay. What that is it's FCS Express's ability to look at whatever gates we've selected here and create all the different permutations of those gates together as new gates. So we'll look at the AND gate positive, OR gate negative, NOT gate negative, XOR gate negative. And it all depends on what gates is selected as part of that combination gate. So whether we select 4 gates or 2 gates, if I just select those gates and choose the option to add combination gate matrix, you'll see that it's going to give you the possible permutations for all those options. So whether they're dual positive or one's positive and the other's negative, or they're both dual negative, you'll see that that'll be selected there for whatever gates you've selected. Okay, so these are just simply new gates where we could just drag and drop them, and then we can see what are the events that make up that new gate matrix that we've created. So I'm being asked to please repeat the XOR gate. So the XOR gate is simply cells that are exclusively within 2 gates, but not in both at the same time. Okay? So in other words, we're looking at cells that are in here and here. So we're joining those two, but we don't want to see the events that are in both of them at the same time. Okay? So this plot's looking at these 2 gates together. However, if there's any overlap or any intersection between the 2, the XOR is going to eliminate the cells that are within both gates at the same time. So one of the last tools I want to show you is something called the Gate Navigator. So from the View tab, you'll see that we have all these different navigators that we can use to help filter our data, or maybe we're trying to look for something quickly, whether we're looking for something through the layout where we can look at all the different pages and just select a different page and see all the different objects that are on that page. Or maybe you just want to look at all the different data files and all the plots in which that data file is being viewed. The Gate Navigator allows us to look all the different gates that are available within our layout and see where those gates are being applied and what plots are being viewed for those gates. So the Gate View, the Gate Navigator, is an easy way to, if you want to take some these gates and apply them to other plots, we can actually drag them from here as well. Right? So again, if I just wanted to take this OR gate and drag it over here, I can select that. Or maybe I actually want to take this plot. Where I select it, you'll see that the software automatically selects that plot and highlights it for me in the background so I can see where that plot. Maybe I want to take another plot from another page. You'll see that it highlights it there too. But maybe I just want to drag and drop this here onto this page as well. So the Gate Navigator allows us to go through all the different objects, whether it's by gate, by data, or by each layout object, and look at all the objects that are on each of those particular elements. The Gate Navigator is one of these dockable layouts, the dockable windows that are available to FCS Express, similar to the data list, similar to the batch actions list, similar to the compensations window, where we can actually embed this to the side, and we can auto-hide this if we need to. So that way if my mouse goes over there and I need to retrieve something, maybe I want to apply a gate or just look at, do some filtering to find out where something is, I can simply do that from my Gate Navigator. Okay. And finally, what we're going to do is we'll talk about gate preferences. So there are some characteristics of our gates that you can customize, and we can simply do that from our FCS Express user options. So we can access our FCS Express user options from our File tab, where you just click on Options, or you could just click on your login down below and select your options here. So by selecting that, here with your options, you'll see that there are different categories for which you can customize virtually any aspect of FCS Express. You'll see that there's a gate category where if you simply select it, you'll see all the different options that you can select and customized just for that option. So specifically, we can select what the default gate colors are going to be, meaning that for every gate that we create, what's the sequence of colors for all the different gates that you create. We can simply just click on one of these cells, and we can either just click on a drop-down menu and choose a color for each one of these squares, or we can actually select a specified color and kind of customize it as we need to. We can also move these up and down, so maybe I don't want green to be the second color that I use. Maybe I want it further down in the hierarchy, and I can just select and just move it down, or I can move it up. We can edit the line width of the gate if we want to make that gate stand out a little bit more. There are certain things that we can do with the text box that shows up, or whether or not we want to see a text box when we create a gate. So if we just go back to the gates window that I had over here, you'll see that each one of these gates has a text box that had the gate name plus a statistic associated with it. And that can be defined here. So whether we actually want to see a gate name within the text box and whether we want to see a gate statistic, we can just select those options. And then we can just choose whatever stat we want to appear within that text box. And also, what do we want the default position of that text box to be? Do we want it top center of the gate, or where do we want to place it every time we create a gate? Some of these other options also relate to that text box as well. In other words, when you move a gate, do you want that text box to move as well? And also, if you decide to show a gate on a plot, do you want FCS Express to automatically create that text box with that gate too? So one of the things I didn't show you was that when we create a gate, we can actually right-click on a plot, and you'll see that there's an option for Show Gates. So what that simply is showing is just the boundary for that gate. So if I actually just decide to deselect ellipse, the boundary is no longer there, but the gate still lives. It's just in the background. So we've just hidden the gate. We can still see the color for all the different colors in the gates that have been applied within the layout. We've just chosen not to show that gate. So I can actually just go back, show the gate, and I can determine in that preference whether or not I want that text box to come on as well. What we can also do is determine how we want FCS Express to deal with what happens if we move the gate to a blank part of the layout. So in FCS Express, what we can do is, if we wanted to create another plot that's a copy of this plot but just focused on these gated events, we can just take this gate, drag it over here, and then I'll get a new gate, a new plot that's focused on those gated events. So then I can finagle this as I need to, and then replicate whatever it is I need to that suits my analysis. You'll see that the other option here for that preference is that if I just take a gate and put it over here, we can also just tell the software to delete that gate. Okay? And some of the other preferences here relate to how do we recreate gates. So if a gate's selected when I'm creating a new gate, do you want the software to automatically create it as a new gate, or do you want to replace the selected gate? And you can do that whether or not you want it to do it automatically or if you want to be prompted to do so. Okay? And the same thing goes with whether or not a gate is selected also. Okay, so that basically wraps up our webinar for today. If you have any questions, please let us know. But during our webinar, hopefully you can see that gates do allow you to analyze subpopulations in a consistent and reproducible manner. Gates allow you to focus on cells of interest, and you can apply those cells of interest to other plots, so you can focus on properties that are specific for those cells of interest. So whether you want to look at something like size or nuclearity or some type of fluorescence for which those cells are stained, you can do that just by creating gates and then just creating a hierarchy that helps you focus on those cells of interest. In FCS Express 5, we offer many different gain tools that increase the flexibility for analysis. So you can simply just select the gain tool that best suits your analysis and then just apply it to your data. And then through drag and drop, you can easily apply those gated events either in a new plot or the existing plots, just to focus on those cells on the analysis. In FCS Express, we have a pretty handy way, an easy way to look at the relationship of all our gates to one another through something called a gate view. And we can simply just edit our gates from there. We can add the ability to emphasize these events now. So that way we can increase the dot size to make those events pop out. And we also have the ability now to easily create Boolean logic to help us specify these gates. So if you're looking for specific populations, you can use Boolean logic to look at those specific populations, and you can just create the logic that best satisfies the cells that you're looking for. And also with the Gate Navigator provides a novel way to provide a useful overview for all the gates within the layout. So as I mentioned, with the Gate Navigator, it's one of those dockable windows where we can make it just part of the layout. If you need to access it, simply here on the side, you can either just embed it within the layout or you can auto hide it. And then you can just easily just look at it, find the information that you're looking for, or you can just drag and drop from it to either apply gates or just to add new plots to different pages in your layout. So if you have any further questions, you can always email us at support@denovosoftware.com. Or if you haven't already, please visit us at fcsexpress.com. You can download a free 30-day trial if you haven't already. We will be staying on the line for the next few minutes to take any questions that you may have. Otherwise, I hope to hear from you in the future, and thank you for joining today's webinar.